Anyone who has played Resident Evil 4 Remake is aware of the in-game challenges. One in particular, called Minimalist, requires beating the game with only handguns and knives. I have completed this already. In fact, I did the forbidden trifecta, collecting Minimalist, Frugalist, and Silent Stranger together in a single run. Look, here's even a screenshot to prove it. But it was pure, agonizing hell. But today's challenge isn't that. We're essentially doing Minimalist, but with a few more restrictions. Hello friends, my name is Volantis, but you can just call me a masochist. Can I beat Resident Evil 4 with only the Sentinel 9? The best thing the S9 has going for it is its ammo capacity, being the second highest of any handgun in the game, just behind the Matilda with its exclusive upgrade. But it's tied with the Punisher for the lowest damage output, and is pretty much average in every other regard. For this, I'm basically following the minimalist rule set, except with a few extra restrictions. First off, the only combat method allowed is the Sentinel 9 handgun. No knives for fighting. No melee except for executing the break free prompt during an enemy's grab. Any instances where a knife or other weapon is forced upon me are forgiven. Hazards and traps are allowed during combat as long as they are triggered by an enemy. Things like tripwires, bear traps, explosive barrels, dynamite, etc. I can shoot any hazards if they block a path or hide an item, but I can't damage an enemy in the process. In addition to the hazards rule, if I shoot an enemy's body and they drop a Molotov or dynamite that finishes them off, that's fair game. Any enemies killed by each other, themselves, or by an ally of mine are also allowed. No glitching, boundary breaking, or sequence breaking the game. No bonus or DLC items except for purely cosmetic ones, and of course the Sentinel 9. That of course also includes the expanded treasure map. I do own that, but I will not allow myself to collect any of the treasures. And finally, I will be starting a new game on professional difficulty. With the rule set long enough to put the Bible to shame, let's begin. The Backstreet Boys dropped me off for what I like to call a Spanish slumber party, which unexpectedly went south faster than your favorite OnlyFans model. After narrowly escaping death from the friendly homeowner, we make a quick pit stop at an oddly placed typewriter and swap out the Silver Ghost for the Sentinel 9. Now the challenge officially begins. Fortunately for my delicate booty schmeat, I don't have to kill any of the wildlife roaming the village. But unfortunately for my schmeat, it took 6 tries to survive the assault. The villagers stay pretty spread out, so there isn't a lot of room to steer clear of everyone. I kept getting grabbed, and without full health, that's an almost guaranteed death sentence. Even an elderly woman older than time itself had the strength to snap my fragile little pencil neck. On attempt number 6, I chose to enter the center house. That spawns in one of the chainsaw men, but it also opens up an extra path to help train enemies around. After a long 5 minutes of preserving my ammo, along with my juicy hams, everybody has a collective ADHD brain fart and forgets my existence, allowing me to move on. None of the cattle holed up in the farm or the lakeside settlement was any match for Raccoon City's finest. I killed a few of them, but for the most part I avoided as many as I could until I uncover a rugged Spanish playboy in a bag and then get brutally knocked unconscious by the big cheese. I awaken in the dookiest of shitholes, chained up to the aforementioned Spanish boy. After a brief bout of teamwork, he leaves me high and dry to recover my gear on my own, which I was able to do with relative ease. After meeting the definitely not Australian, and I totally didn't make that mistake last time, merchant, I thought it would be a good idea to head down into the nearby valley to subject myself to a thorough cake pounding. The completely unbalanced onslaught of one chiseled Adonis versus 46 dozen dirty shit nuggets led me to employ a unique strategy. I used the hut next to the gate as a means to funnel enemies toward me. 2 Ganados would attempt to throw dynamite into the room, but they would miss worse than 50 Cent throwing the opening pitch. The explosive little sticks would then evaporate any enemy standing right outside the window, granting me plenty of free items without having to use too much ammo. This wasn't perfect though. I still got grabbed a few times, which as you might expect often results in a painful, excruciating death. But after just 5 attempts, I survived the valley. A little bit of the dynamite baiting tactic, coupled with a hefty amount of dodging luck, got me in and out with the crank handle, as well as the small key and the ruby. We take a leisurely stroll on over to La Casa del Gran Queso, where I acquire the insignia key and get my windpipe liquefied by Mr. Cheese himself. After taking a moment to catch my breath, it's time to head out towards the church to find the blonde shithead. Chapter 3 was far easier than anticipated. Getting to the church was really no trouble. Even fighting through the villagers on the bridge and the dogs in the quarry was pretty painless. I put my military training to use and snuck past the brute patrolling the fish farm to grab the gas can, then hauled ass out of there before he could tenderize me with his enormous meat mallet. And no, that's not a euphemism. I returned to the docks and gas up the boat just in time for the beast of the lake to erupt from under the surface. This fight is no different than a normal playthrough, so I turned it into some foul gray sushi before swiftly passing out from the absurdly burning pain in my guts. With my tummy ache subsided for now, I have to make my way toward the church. Again. Well, this chapter is fairly short at least. To start off the lake area, I collected all the static item drops. The first statue head, a bunch of treasures, and a few requests, that way they're done and out of the way. After grabbing the red 9, I chose to take the silver ghost out of storage, then empty the clips for both guns and keep them in my inventory. In theory, 2 extra handguns might help spawn more ammo, but time will tell if that's the case. But worry not, I will still only use the Sentinel 9 for combat. Over at the large cave shrine, I put my big brain to work by utilizing the ladders and the dynamite guys to my advantage. I was able to bait dynamite throws toward a few of the ganados to take care of them for me, and shot a few others off the top of the ladder. You might argue that fall damage hurt them more than my gun did, but hey, it's not my fault they can't hold onto a ladder. Anywho, like the slippery little weasel I am, I snagged the second head and sprinted back to the boat. Now the time has come. My biggest rival, El Gigante. I left a lot of item crates to loot around the lake, so I need to do it efficiently and collect as much ammo as I can. I also can't come back for them once I return to the church, so I've got to do it now. Please allow me to take a moment and explain a strategy I call item re-rolling. Long story short, you make a save, then you loot an item box. If the item sucks, you reload the save and try again. If it's good, all peachy and you continue on. If you watched my shotguns only video, you'll know how painfully tedious it can be to do this. Obviously, the primary item I need is handgun ammo. Gunpowder and small resources are good alternatives to stock up on as well. Everything else will just be sold for extra money. But the game will not drop just those 3 items. It'll most frequently give you money, but it also drops knives, grenades, and other garbage because the game doesn't know you aren't using them. Additionally, the more ammo you already have, the less likely it is to give you more. So for times when I really need to prep for a tough fight, I have to reset a lot. One important part of this re-rolling strategy that I figured out is to leave behind item crates for when I need them. Unless you're low on ammo and or fighting for your life, breaking every item box as you pass through an area is a fool's errand. Most of what you'll get won't have any use outside of just being sold. Check out the shotguns only video for a more detailed explanation of this strategy. Link is in the description. But the good thing is, so far, I have been leaving item boxes alone until I needed them, which is now. Between the fish farm, the docks outside, the path back towards the quarry, and the dock below the merchant, I collected 2 gunpowder, 1 large resource, 40 handgun bullets, and a good chunk of money. That may not sound like a lot, but keep in mind that once you have a certain amount of ammo, it'll start dropping smaller stacks. When you're low on handgun bullets, it'll drop stacks of 10. When it thinks you have plenty, it'll drop stacks of 5. Also, as I said a second ago, ammo is less likely to drop at all the more you collect. These 2 barrels on the way back to the quarry alone took 49 resets to drop handgun bullets a single time. They held pesetas 91 times. But anyway, once I finished my exhaustive looting session, I upgraded my Sentinel 9 as far as I could, maxing out every stat except ammo capacity. I'm ready to try defeating my toughest foe once again, armed with 3 full heals, 110 bullets, and a dream. Attempt number 1. I got much further than I thought I would considering how many shots I missed, but ultimately my downfall came from me getting stuck on a bit of the wall. Gigante snatched me up and chomped my skull like some human candy. Let's try again, shall we? Holy shit. I did not think to even the tiniest degree that I would finish this fight in just 2 tries, but I was in the freaking zone. I stayed on my guard and filled his cranial cavity with enough bullets to rival the US military. and eventually the big bastard had enough and laid down for the eternal sleep. Chapter 5 cranks the shit dial up to 11. We went swiftly from most of this run being enjoyable to nothing at all being tolerable, all thanks to that little blonde bug you all know as Ashley. If you've never felt the displeasure of having to deal with this non-contributor, consider yourself lucky, but this is what often happens. Anyway, I stealthed as best as I could through the village center to get back to the farm. Some enemies couldn't see a handsome rain-soaked American agent if he crouched 10 feet away directly in their line of sight. Some others apparently have eagle-eyed night vision.
Hi there.
I was trying to get the 2 treasures still in the village, but it quickly became too annoying to do so without getting detected, so I chose to pass them up, and once I was clear of the bullman and the monster pup, I just hightailed it into the farm. The farm itself wasn't any better. That punk-ass brute insisted on violating my personal space, but I still managed to grab the stack of ammo upstairs in the barn and progress toward the cabin for the ambush. My saving grace in this fight was, as was foreshadowed earlier, the ladder. A couple quick pops to a Ganado skull usually knocks them to the floor, granting me a few more precious seconds of maintaining the literal high ground. This helped keep me in the fight long enough for Big Bertha to bust through the window. I did my best to keep my distance from all the monkeys in this cage and force-fed the beefcake as many bullets as I could get my hands on. Despite suffering a human jam-inducing blow to my midsection, I was able to slay the beast.
I'm alive! I'm alive!
Alright, well, you know what they say. Anything worth doing is worth doing twice, I guess. Something cool I forgot about that really bailed me out a couple times in this run was that Luis will give you a few stacks of ammo. Despite going into this fight with at least 168 bullets, Luis still felt it necessary to selflessly gift me 60 more. What a swell guy. Anywho, I utilized the ladder once more, cracking spines, doing lines, and shagging nines. You know what I'm talking about. Slowly but surely, I melted plaga after plaga and slaughtered the bovine bitch yet again. I did not dare go for the emerald this time and just took the dub. The Ganado camp is next, and if I were tackling this part with shotguns again, I would definitely be resetting for ammo. But I don't really want this run to be a repeat of that challenge, so I'm gonna relax on the looting a bit. Resident Evil is, at its core, not a series where you mow down enemies. It requires a bit more strategy than that, especially on the harder difficulties. In my 400 plus hours playing this game, it's become apparent to me that it will prioritize dropping handgun ammo over any other kind. So rather than spend extra hours farming ammo, I'm gonna press on as you normally would and just see how it goes. Anyway, back to the camp. I was trying to avoid enemies as best as I could for the first half of it, but each attempt was just the drizzling squirts. I had little choice but to pick off one enemy at a time, including the brute. Once all the ground troops were disposed of, I was free to ransack the area and progress through. But the second half of the camp is even more hellish. Fortunately, we have more space to work with, and I can stow away the red-headed crayon muncher. But we do have to deal with the Bella sisters. Last time, the severe pain caused by Bella's chainsaw shredding my spinal column to pieces had me howling like a bulldog shitting a pine cone, and I was determined not to suffer that hell again. My strategy for this go-around was to try and get the Bellas to saw as many villagers in half as possible. She managed to kill a whopping 1 enemy. Hell, yeah. When that quickly became unreliable, I retreated back outside the camp to where enemies stop attacking, and they'll shuffle back inside and reset their positions. Then I'd sneak back in and pop off 1 enemy at a time. With this, I was able to easily delete the sister holding the crank. I repeated the retreat and re-enter tactic until I disposed of enough villagers and looted enough resources that I felt comfortable grabbing the crank and moving on. And stunningly, I made it through the camp in just a single attempt. I expected to be here for hours, but I guess I'm just too good. We outrun Senor Grabby Hands and his minions to reach the ominous slaughterhouse. I took a moment with the merchant to max out the Sentinel Nine's ammo capacity, then head inside to what is obviously going to be a boss fight arena. Right on cue, Mr. Cheese Kool-Aid Man's through the wall, prompting Leon to light the entire building on fire. Brilliant. Over the course of 4 attempts, the strategy that developed against Il Grande Formaggio went as thus. Immediately go up to the 2nd floor. From there, unload into him as much as I can while dodging his attacks. With a little luck, he'd primarily do the swipe, which can be easily avoided with a button prompt. After he goes down, shoot his gross giant back eye as much as possible to send him into a second form. During this part, he'll mostly attack from a distance. Both variations of his flaming boards throw can be avoided relatively easily, but when he goes for the barrel throw, I need to head up the ladder, and if I time it well enough, he'll throw them during Leon's invincibility portion of climbing it. From there, I just shoot as quickly and as accurately as I can, and hope that I can drain his health faster than he drains mine. I didn't have any heals going into the fight, so I died a couple times, and I also accidentally shot the barrels once. But on the 4th attempt, I stayed the course and survived with nary a pixel of health remaining. I took his nasty gooey eye as a trophy and left Bigu Chizu there to melt in the flames. I limped my way to the castle with a measly 0.01% of my health intact. Once inside the castle grounds, I remembered about the laser sight attachment, so I bought it and stuck that sumbitch on my pistol. We juked past RFK Jr. to reach the castle's catapult battlefield. I likely could have made it past this in a single try if not for my reserves of good luck finally drying up. In my disgraceful attempt to plow through the area, Ashley got nabbed. Shocking, I know. And while I would love to be rid of her for good, I unfortunately do need to keep her alive. I figured as long as I don't let a zealot carry her out of the area, I'd be good. But the game gave me the longest, veiniest middle finger as she was taken away into nothingness. There's no door here. Literally nothing but a brick wall. What, did they warp through a wormhole? Fuck you. Okay, we need a good strat. For starters, I shot the weight to release the cannon before fighting anything. Then I'd bait some cultists into the catapult landing zones to score some kills while using less ammo. Next, I kill the Plaga Man with the mace, then find a safe spot to snipe the 2 zealots operating the north and northeast catapults. Once the enemies are cleared, I blast open the door and then drop down below as quickly as possible before the next wave of enemies can attack. By jumping down, the enemies lose sight of us, so I can then sneak around the back way and then sprint past them to try and reach the castle door. I got through the entire area only to accidentally melee an enemy right at the end. I am going to crash out. Okay, one more time. Release cannon, bait enemies, kill Plaga, shoot catapulters, blast door, jump down, sprint away, and enter the castle. All done. Finally. We are soon after introduced to the 8th castellan of this magnificent architecture and Tim Burton-esque ventriloquist dummy with a mouth that says I just bit into a lemon, Ramon Salazar. He makes a piss-poor attempt to persuade me at handing over my baggage, to which I respectfully refuse, so he sends another group of zealots to try and behead me. I used a bit too much ammo, but I disposed of them easily, then headed to the dungeon below to find a way further into the castle. My caked-up God mode ass broke the floor beneath my feet, and now I stand face to face with BDSM Wolverine. The Garrador's abysmal attempt to slice me to ribbons had me chuckling from the bottom of my nuts. With a hearty helping of patience, I shot the worm emerging from his spine, then quietly dodged his enraged swordplay, rinse and repeat until dead. Easy peasy. The dreaded water hall is up next. To prepare, I visit my good buddy once more and get the exclusive upgrade for the Sentinel Nine. With this bad boy fully upgraded, these spaghetti-skulled troglodytes stand no chance. Water hall is one of the more highly combative moments of the game, but the good thing about this challenge is that a pistol is a fairly well-rounded weapon, so it's sufficient at taking on just about any kind of enemy. I took out the first wave of grounded enemies while making sure Ashley didn't get smacked around too aggressively, then picked off the crossbow shooters from a safe distance. The RFKs below look more dangerous than they are. They advance towards you ridiculously slowly, and popping them in the mouth when they go to vomit up the souls of the damned kills them fairly quickly. These guys didn't give me any problems at all during the entire game. By the time I obtained the wheel and returned to the main floor, I was pretty confident that I was going to get through this room with a lot less trouble than last time. I was debraining zealots and receiving ammo at a decent enough rate that I was able to consistently stay in the fight. Was my accuracy the best? Absolutely not. But that's the glory of Resident Evil. You don't have to be an expert marksman to survive, just adequate. We open up the upper floor and I tell Ashley to get bent and make her do some work for once. At least the enemies trying to snatch her up are laughably weak. Usually 2 headshots is enough. Eventually she gets both wheels turned while I do everything in my power to preserve my sweetmeats and keep her useless ass alive, then we both haul ass out the door. Even with Ashley's stunning ability to reliably and repeatedly outstupid a brick, I got through Waterhall in just 1 try. Yes, just 1. They will be chanting my name long after I'm gone, I'm sure. I can't take the stress of having Ashley hanging off my hip all the time, so I tell her to kick rocks. Surprisingly, she was cool with that, so we can move on without her for a bit. I know you're all just dying to get Ashley back, so we'll breeze through this chapter. Body armor is available now, so as any sane person would, I bought that gift from God immediately. I skirted by the cultists in the wine cellar to pump the red goat boy full of lead and steal his lantern, then press on towards the outer wall of the castle. The battlements is a long roundabout stretch of fighting through zealots and surviving an armored giant hucking boulders in my general direction. It really wasn't hard though. The handgun makes taking out enemies from a distance a relatively simple task. Most others can be killed by letting Gigante shred them to pieces with lightspeed rubble. I made it all the way to the final tower and then did that thing again where I accidentally meleeed a zealot when I meant to do something else, this time trying to go for the ladder. Goddamn interact button being the same for both actions. Okay, so we do all that again, then make a break for the finish line before reuniting with Cherryhead. Chapter 9 also wasn't too bad. Nothing here really had to be done any differently than I've been doing the whole run so far. Only a few resets throughout the chapter, most of which came from bad luck or just plain poor shooting. We navigate the maze, putting down every diseased doggo and cultist along the way to reach the Grand Hall. Surviving the armory required a lot of ammo, but by keeping my distance and lining up my shots, I banished them all to the Shadow Realm without even having to use any of my heals. The gallery did that cheap bullshit again where an enemy grabbed Ashley and then just disappeared into the void, even though I knew exactly where they were. But despite that, and accidentally shooting Ashley a couple times, I did eventually get past it. Ashley returns to Leon's cage and tosses him the key before getting kidnapped once more by Hot Topic Predator. Ashley can wait a bit while I explore the castle some more. I backtracked around to get some valuables and then pushed forward to the bug-infested ballroom. Novistadors are pretty weak, so handling them with a pistol is an easy task. I exterminated the lot of them and then moved on to face off with the Edward Scissor twins. To avoid wasting excess ammo, I would stealth around to place a zealot between myself and a Garrador, then make some noise to attract them in my direction. Once a Garrador even smells another enemy, they'll slice them to shreds for me.
What?
Once all the secondary enemies were gone, it was just a matter of playing the patience game and busting a cap in their backworms until their health bars gave up. I barge in on Ramen Salad Bar and his goons, forcing Ashley to participate in some black goop-chugging frat boy ritual. Look, I dislike Ashley with the best of them, but this is completely unacceptable. She's not allowed to have friends. Before I can break up the party, ol' HTP arrives and teabags me in half. Tired of me being the party pooper, Raisin Salsa Jar orders his goth murder lizard to drop me down a pit to my death. A, there are still 6.5 more chapters to go. B, Leon isn't Kratos. Conclusion, safe to bet that Leon wouldn't die here. I navigate the depths and the waterway to find a path back up to the castle. After restoring power to the elevator, I'm ambushed by the Void Centipede himself, Verdugo. Now, fortunately for my sanity, and also my ammo reserves, Verdugo does not have to be defeated. I can just run in circles, collecting items, freezing him, and avoiding being stabbed until the elevator arrives. Once it's here, I make a break for it, and we leave him here to suffer alone for the rest of time. We just never see him again after this point. Convenient. Before descending further into literal hell, I wanted to see if I could get any good charms. While I can't participate in the shooting gallery, I can trade spinels for some gold tokens. I had enough gems to buy 2 charms, but unfortunately I didn't win any that would help me. I got the Shield Zealot and Don Esteban, both of which give boosted odds for bonus crafting shotgun shells. Wow, talk about adding insult to injury. The game's like, hey, here's some stuff that won't help you. It would have helped in your last run though. Go fuck yourself. Anyway, the path forward is blocked and we need a bomb to clear it. Conveniently though, there is some dynamite in the nearby cave. While it wasn't the cleanest showing by any means, I did get through this cave and retrieved the dynamite in just 3 attempts. The Dos Gigantes fight up next is not one that I can skate by with subpar accuracy or low ammo. I'll need all the bullets I can stockpile, so I repeatedly reloaded saves to gather extra ammo from the few boxes left in the area, eventually collecting another 45 handgun bullets. With that, let's give the fight a shot. Naked Gigante is not hard at all. Not like that, you degenerates. With it having just 69% of the health that the Quarry Gigante does, and having a maxed out pistol this time, it doesn't take much to put him down. The problem is the armored Gigante. Interestingly, the armored one has only 46% of the health that the Quarry Giant has, but as the name suggests, he's heavily armored. Luis does attempt to make the fight easier by attaching another bundle of dynamite to his back to break the armor. The inherent issue with this is that the dynamite actually harms Gigante, so because of that, I can't blow it up. So I'm stuck defeating this beast by only shooting the very small exposed portion of his face, which is ridiculously difficult to keep doing with how aggressively he moves. Half of Gigante's attacks are also kind of hard to avoid. The leap allows a simple button press to evade, and the charge has a wind up so you have time to dash to the side and out of his way. But if he simply starts walking towards you, he's very likely to kick your ribs into a million pieces. Or if he does one of his repeated swipe attacks, say goodbye to most of your health. The kick and the swipes can be dodged, but it took me multiple attempts at this fight to eventually get halfway decent at it. The saving grace, besides learning to just get better, was Luis bailing me out with free ammo. Without his helping hand, it was not looking feasible that I could survive and win. But something about attempt number 4 went impressively well. Perhaps my brain finally found the good player switch deep within the catacombs of itself, smothered in dust and cobwebs, and for shits and giggles decide to turn it on and see what happens. I was able to trudge through the fight and shoot Gigante in the mouth enough times to leave him laying ass to heaven. Luis and I double-teamed the Novistador hive, which is hella easy. I let Luis take out a couple of the bugs for me, but otherwise I had no issues. On the way back up, we're stopped in our tracks by another former ally of mine. This time, the bitter, angry, tiny PP droid machine, Jacqueline Krauser. He could have at least killed the one quote-unquote ally that hinders my progress instead of the one that actually helps, but no, we're not allowed to have nice things. So for that, Krauser must pay for stabbing my stubbled Spanish amigo. I stabbed him back a fair bit, but the barely breathing Luis breaks up the fight, sending Krauser scurrying off into the darkness. Oh, and if it wasn't obvious, you have to use a knife here. You can't switch to a gun. As Luis heroically breathes his last breath, I now set my sights on not just rescuing the child, but avenging Luis's death and taking down everyone along the way. After finally re-emerging from the pits of hell, I focused my attention on the clock tower. Another long endeavor, but not as hard as I feared it could have been. I let the Roman slide guitar statue cook up the zealots coming my way, and just shot anyone else that managed to avoid the flamethrower of doom. While riding the lift to the top, I chose to let zealots jump down so I could try farming a bit of ammo. You gotta shoot them anyway, so I might as well, right? The red zealots are a bit of a pain, needing to consume many bullets before they kick the bucket. But altogether, the clock tower wasn't bad. I have no idea how many bullets I'll need for the fight against Small Cigar, so I took a fair bit of time looting the nearby barrels to gather more ammo before heading inside. My go-to tactic in this fight is to hide under the awning on the north side. It really helps protect me from a good portion of Sizzletar's projectile liquid black death. Even with my 1000 IQ strat, he just wouldn't die. Every time he horks up flesh-burning tar upon my glistening body, it would drain a good 75% or so of my health, and I just wasn't good enough in the first couple of attempts to put him down first. The successful attempt was still very tough. I had to stay mobile the entire time, baiting Ramen around the archway and its connecting pillar to avoid his more direct attacks. I did accidentally run into his gunk bombs more times than I would like to admit, but they often held some extra ammo that I desperately needed, so it's all good. Again, patience, patience, patience. Keep some distance and pop him in the face when I had time. Before too long, Rhinestone Salmon Card couldn't stay in the fight and crumbled like a wet granola bar. With the castle now in my rear view, we move on to the military island. Both parts of the introductory wharf went as normal. Nothing really happened that I haven't already explained in other altercations. So let's skip ahead to one of the hardest parts of the run. As you likely could have guessed, regenerators are the most difficult of the recurring enemies. As their name implies, they regenerate. But what's worse is that their weak points are hidden underneath a thick layer of diseased blubber. But more on that in a second. Fortunately, the first two don't need to be fought. I can grab the key card, hightail it to the freezer to upgrade it, and then bolt back to the safety of the kitchen. Sure, I got brutally pimp slapped a few times in the process.
Stop fucking running from me!
But there's no sense in fighting these abominations if I don't have to. The next one is a different story. I need a wrench to access the last upgrade panel for my keycard. And apparently, across this entire island that houses construction equipment, research labs, a military stronghold, and other things, there's only one wrench, and it has been shoved up the ass of a regenerator. I call bullshit. No way that's the only wrench. I looked around this very limited area I currently have access to, and you know what I found? Not one, not two, but 6 wrenches. 2 of them were in the room just before the incubation lab. I also found a pair of pliers that could have worked, but I guess I'm giving Fat Folds Frank a colonoscopy just for the hell of it. Okay, well, anyway, back to the matter at hand. Rather than spend hours of trial and error figuring out which one has the wrench by endlessly shooting the body of its owner trying to hit its weak points, I have a different idea. I purchased the cheap rifle and smacked the thermal scope on top. I can use the scope to find the wrench, identify the plagas hidden inside the regenerators, memorize their locations, and then hopefully eliminate them with my Sentinel Nine. Now, before you whip out your keyboards and besmirch the good name of Volantis Moon, let me explain. I'm using the scope purely for strategic advantage. I'm not firing the rifle at all. The scope and/or rifle do not do any of the work to progress the game. They simply cut out the guesswork involved in defeating this particular enemy. If you still have a problem with this, my advice is make like a wrench and shove it up your ass. Anyway, even with the scope, this part was still infuriating as hell. Memorizing the plaga locations is the easy part. Actually shooting them repeatedly and accurately is quite the chore. There really is no strategy other than just having good accuracy and shooting their weak spots as quickly as possible before they can wiggle away or bite through your jugular. A few times I used way too much ammo for my comfort. A couple times I mistakenly broke open another pod, and once I swear Leon even knifed it on his own. On the 8th try, I was blasting the hell out of it, and it just exploded. I have no idea what I did differently, but I'll take it. Alright, sweet. With the regenerator now disconnected from the flesh server, I got the keycard upgraded, then returned to Ashley's cell to reunite for one last escort mission just for old time's sake. Chapter 14 is a bit too long for my taste, so I'll do my best to summarize it quickly. I have enough spinels to buy 2 more charms, but again, nothing good. Oh well. The cargo depot and boiler room were little trouble, but now I have to deal with another regenerator. This one also turns into an Iron Maiden, and not even the cool one. Plus I have Ashley with me. Super fun. At first I tried running straight for the switches, but no good. He'll smash your brains in before you can pull them. Then I chose to try fighting him off. While I was able to kill his first form, I didn't have enough ammo to finish off the Iron Maiden. I failed miserably each time I tried. He was quite the trooper. So I tried a new strategy. I lured him to the first door and then blew off his leg, hopefully without getting chomped, and then ran to the switches. While I did screw this whole system up a couple of times, it did give us the time needed to get the door open, and then we ran for the hills into waste disposal. Once we get through here, we'll be clear of those regenerating pricks. Fortunately, this part is forgiving enough that I can pick off the first wave of soldiers without dealing with it, and then I only have to kill one more before Jiggly Jenny sends me to the great beyond. Once Ashley is free of harm, I make a break back to her side, and she finally makes herself useful by dropping the regenerator into the abyss. Just beyond these exit doors is probably the most arduous part of the run, second only to the final boss fight, the Wrecking Ball Arena. It requires all of my skill, combining my knowledge of accuracy, patience, endurance, and avoidance all into one big struggle. What makes this fight tough is the variations of soldiers. Axe throwers, crowbar swingers, spiked bat swingers, stun rod guys, shield guys, Molotov throwers, dynamite throwers, crossbow shooters, RPG shooters, brutes, and worst of all,
spiders.
The first brute can be avoided until he's all that's left, and the second one attacks alone. I can use the climbing ledge to help take them out, so no real issue there. The RPG shooters can also be easily avoided with all the scaffolding and whatnot here to hide behind. What gave me a migraine were the spider-soldier hybrids. These bastards are relentless. They don't stun easily and will happily run straight towards death trying to bash my skull in. Attempt number 1 resulted in me wasting way too much ammo, and I fell victim to the button curse once more, accidentally suplexing a soldier when I meant to pick up an item. So of course I was forced to reset. Attempt number 2 wasn't any better. I got repeatedly cheap shot by spider soldiers until I died. It certainly didn't help that I had to keep stopping what I was doing in order to save Ashley. Useless dick. Alright, time to lock in. I did my best to trail enemies into the danger zone of thrown dynamite, to bait the mallet brute into damaging his allies, and enticing the RPG guys to shoot other soldiers. Most of the time I was unsuccessful, but I occasionally got it to work in my favor. I took a considerable amount of abuse, but had enough healing items to stay alive. I think the only reason I got through on the third attempt was because the game just didn't send spiders after me. I don't know how this whole fight works in relation to how many times the wrecking ball has to strike the wall or how many enemies need to die before it sends spiders after me, but I apparently did something right. As a reward for enduring that nightmare, Saddlebags appears to take Captain Kidnap off my hands. Thanks, bro. Krauser is waiting just down the road, and I know I'll need a ton of ammo, so I spent a bit of time resetting for item drops around the campsite until I had about 100 bullets. My gut tells me the best way to deal with Krauser is to just fire mercilessly into his rippling muscles. He has a real hard-on for using the knife, which I'm not allowed to parry, and since I just burned through a lot of my full heals, I'm gonna have to stay on my toes for this whole ordeal. The first encounter was rough. I lost about 80% of my armor and about a quarter of my ammo. Not a great start, but we'll press on. His second attack can easily be cheesed by crouching behind this box after the first ledge drop. Suck it, nerd. Once past the bridge, he comes back for another hand-to-hand brawl. Again, Jackie is nothing without his precious knife. While it is possible to just run away and not get hit, it's not guaranteed, and if I get hit once, I'm forced to take a series of slashes, which is of course not good. I ran around the area, popping off shots when I felt I had enough space between us while taking the occasional knife swipe. He drained the rest of my armor and another 38 bullets, but I made it through to the final stage. Try as I might though, I just could not nail down a good strategy in this first attempt, and I didn't have the healing items needed to bail me out. So Krauser grabbed my noggin and painted the battlefield with my head jelly. The thing that sucks worse than losing right there is that I now have to repeat the last pre-transformation fight, and round 2 ended even worse than the first. But I'll be damned if I have to do this a third time. I'm finishing this shit here and now. The crux of this strategy was to climb to the upper floor, run away, and then blast apart his toes and kneecaps until the pain was too severe to handle, at which point he'd expose his face and I could shoot that instead. Once he closed the gap, I jumped back down, ran across the platform, and started the cycle over again. I just do this over and over and over while using crouch to dodge some strikes and getting uncomfortably close to death from others. After a while, Krauser couldn't take the pain anymore and folded under the pressure. One more big bad to go, but we've got a huge gauntlet to endure before we earn the right to take him on. The Military Stronghold, a cacophony of every soldier left in Sadler's arsenal in a last desperate attempt to stop the most overqualified officer to ever come from the RPD. But I'm not alone. I've got the world's best combat chopper pilot on my side, Michael. Mike will deal with the bulk of the butt mud in the first 2 main sections, so there isn't anything to worry about there. But halfway through the camp, an anti-aircraft gun emerges to distract my sidekick, leaving me alone to fight off every jabroni here and get him back in the fight. It's smart to advance little by little through this area. Soldiers are of course easy to deal with in small numbers, but go too fast and you'll have to avoid a multitude of them, including a couple heavy hitters. Slowly but surely, I worked my way through the soldiers and up to the turret. But before I take fire with it, we must pause and test something. I needed to make sure that the AA gun couldn't be destroyed with a pistol. So I made a new save, put on my cat ears, and went to work. After putting 248 bullets into that monstrosity with absolutely no change, my verdict is, no. The AA gun cannot be destroyed with a pistol. Cool, so I don't have to worry about that. I shot that bitch down as per usual, let Mike take out a bunch more soldiers, then move on to the inner bulwark. But it was at this moment that light bulbs began going off in my head. From the platforms near the turret, you can shoot at the enemies in the bulwark area. More specifically, you can gun down the turret operators inside and they can't shoot back. This strategy might seem a bit too pussified for some people's tastes, but it doesn't break any rules. Anytime a new enemy would start manning the turrets, I'd retreat back out to the high ground and pick them and a few other enemies off from a safe distance. This made it a breeze to get both switches pulled and get the hell out of town. Alright, we're in the home stretch now, boys, the Sanctuary Hill. And you know what? It was actually pretty easy. Most of this last battalion can be exterminated by knocking them down the ladder one by one until they're all dead. So no complaints here. I rushed to the Sanctuary's altar to rescue the brain-dead butt-munch, but the Ozman cometh to stop me dead in my tracks. But thanks to my Sigma male vibes, Ada has come to save the day. She buys me enough time for me to grab Dum Dum and make the agonizingly slow walk to Luis's lab. Now we can radiate the parasites out of our guts and prepare for one final showdown. With a newfound lease on life, I make my way toward the docks to confront that eyeball fetishist with a god complex. Let me warn you if you ever want to try this challenge yourself. This fight is painfully long with just a handgun. It's not really much longer than any other boss ultimately, but damn it feels like an eternity. 4 attempts, each resulting in painful and embarrassing failure. Who am I, Ashley? I made more progress on the initial attempt than I expected to though. I shot out all 4 of the eyes on his legs twice each, but ultimately still died because I couldn't dodge his acidic black goo super soaker special. Attempt number 2 was the longest of them all, lasting 13 minutes. Even with all the item crates and Novistadors in the area, I still had such piss poor accuracy that I burned through all of my ammo. Crushing to stay in a fight that long just to lose and have to start over. But as with any fight, you learn the best way that works to get the job done. You would think it's best to keep a large gap between you and Sadler, but counterintuitively, I found the best way for me to fight him was to actually stay close. It's pretty much guaranteed that you will still get hit, but I found I wasn't taking damage any quicker or slower than when I fought from a distance. His lateral swipe and goo hose attacks are still easily avoided, and keeping your accuracy high when shooting his eyes at point blank is much more forgiving. And at least this way, it makes it easier to avoid those pesky overgrown horseflies.
Father, help!
The 5th round, while being attempted with the indignant rage of an angry German boy, was the light at the end of the tunnel. I could tell I was performing much better and victory was within my grasp. I would evade when prompted and try not to get ahead of myself and fire too many shots at once so it would be easier to dodge his other attacks. I would pop off a few bits of lead into his optic nerves, then dash between his legs and try to attack him from behind. Before too long, I had him violently coughing up his viscous squid ink and he fell to the ocean below. But the fight's not quite over. While his final stage is technically timed, you can still shoot him to speed it up a little. So I spent as much of my remaining resources as I could firing ceaselessly into his weird parasite egg sac thing. Ada bails me out once again by tossing me the special rocket launcher, which I am forced to use to critically weaken Sadler. Then I use his own scepter to eject his soul from his gargantuan meat mech. As the island begins to blow, I grab Baboon-ass head and make a break for the underground passage. We pop one last infected soldier, run past the Harlem Shake party, then ride off into the sunset with our mission accomplished. So, can you beat Resident Evil 4 with just a Sentinel 9, without knives, on professional difficulty? Yeah, for sure. If you don't count any times where you're forced to use things like cannons, the Red 9, knives, or whatever else. I found it very relieving that I didn't have to do the excessive item re-rolling this time around, at least not nearly to the same extent. The game is more designed around the pistol, so it was much more helpful with providing the ammo needed. I like statistics, so here are some from this run. For starters, mission fails, and we only had 7 this time around, not bad at all. Next up, deaths, 35. Honestly, not much worse than you would probably do on a normal professional run your first time. And lastly, save reloading, and these are split between 3 subcategories. The first is item crafting bonuses, for which I had 60 reloads. Next was general combat reasons, for which I had 51 reloads. And the last is item rerolling, which I had, 301 reloads. A total save reload count of 412. All mission fails, deaths, and save reloads add up to a total reset count of 454. That sounds like a lot, but it's a far cry away from the misery that was the shotguns run. Again, I'll link that video if you want to see what hell it was staying prepared throughout that challenge. Now, as per usual, we rank the difficulty of challenges here, completely subjectively of course. I gave the Shotguns challenge an 8 out of 10, which at the time I said was on par with my Give Me God of War playthrough. But after a bit of reflection, I think God of War deserves to be bumped up to a 9. That was purely the base game on the hardest difficulty without restrictions, and I still died about 50% more times there than in the Shotguns run. And I didn't even do a lot of the optional stuff in God of War, like the Valkyrie bosses for example. I could have also cut down the death counter in the Shotguns run by just knowing how to prep ahead of time. But this video needs a ranking as well. I think it's earned a 7 out of 10. Most of the time it gives you what you need, but not always. You still need to prep for certain parts, and most fights still require a lot of skill. This will likely be the last time I do a single weapon, no knives challenge in this game. The item rerolling thing is too tedious, and I can't put myself through another run of that if I choose a weapon that's as ammo deficient as the shotgun. So I have an idea to tweak the rules should I jump back into this game in the future. But what did you think of the challenge? A simple distinction from the minimalist rules that makes it quite a step up, wouldn't you agree? Leave a comment down below with your thoughts on the run, and feel free to suggest ideas for future challenges in this game. Also, if there's any parts of this run you'd like to see in full, I'll upload some clips over on my second channel, Volantis Moon 2, if there's any parts you want to see uncut, or if you just want to see how I got through it. If you liked the video, click the like button, and consider subscribing to my channel so you can see new videos as soon as they come out. Subscribing is 100% free. But that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.